guys, today's episode is for that hairstylist that's maybe just graduated from beauty school, or maybe you've been working behind the chair a year or two, but you still walk around some days with that knot or pit in your stomach every time you make a mistake. Or what about those sleepless nights after you've had a redo? I know what it feels like to feel stuck, discouraged, especially when everyone around you is busy. I want you to hear me right now, if that's you. You're not alone. I want you to know that every hairstylist has been here and has walked through a season exactly like this. And I can honestly tell you, including me, but I have not only walked through this season one time, but quite a few times in my career.
Hi there, I'm Sherry Brody, and after more than 40 years working behind the chair, I've learned that success doesn't come from luck. It comes from a lot of faith, perseverance, and courage to keep showing up when life gets messy. Almost 15 years ago, I lost everything. I had to rebuild everything from the ground up, my life, my career, and my confidence. There were moments I wanted to quit, but by God's grace, I found the strength to cut through it, one step, one prayer, one haircut at a time. That's what this podcast is all about. Cutting through it is where we get real about what it takes to build a successful career and a life behind the chair that actually works. So if you're ready to stop doubting yourself, strengthen your skills, and build a business rooted in faith, purpose, and truth, you're in the right place, my friend. This is Cutting Through It, where we don't just talk about hair. We talk about life, growth, and everything it takes to become the hairstylist and the person God created you to be.
And in this episode, I'm going to share with you a little bit about my story and those moments that I almost wanted to quit. But I also want to share with you, and most importantly, the 3 traits that if you embrace them and really listen to this episode, it will change the whole direction of your career. So first off, in case I haven't said so in my past episodes, I graduated from cosmetology school the same month that I graduated from high school. So I was 17 years old. It was in June. I turned 18 in August. I was already engaged. Holy moly. And he was going into the service. So I just took a job at a no appointment haircutting place. And I remember feeling like, I don't know, I just felt so scared every time my client sat in my chair. And half the time, the clients would sit in my chair and look at me like, oh my God, is she going to screw my hair up? Because I looked like I was 12. I looked really young for my age as well. And I remember at that time thinking, what have I done? I'm not cut out for this career. I don't even know how to communicate. And I was still figuring out how to cut hair. But that first year and a half that I was working in the no appointment places, it was really good for me because I was forced to work. I was taught a certain way to cut hair, which was good for me at the time because, as we all know, we get out of school. We know how to pass that state board haircut, but really understand haircutting, that was just, I did not. So it was actually good for me because I'm a person that does need to have, I need to have structure in my work and stuff. And so I had to work a certain way. I remember having to have a big comb and small scissors and I was told I had to do a certain amount of haircuts in an hour. I think it was, I don't even remember now. I want to say it's 2 or 3, I guess. I don't remember. But it took me a while to really grasp it. But it was really good for me, I would say, for that year and a half because it just got me to where I was just kind of comfortable wearing the hairstylist shoes and just dealing with clients and just growing up a bit because I was still a kid. Now, after he was in the service, we ended up moving back home to Phoenix and I landed a job in it was a high-end salon. I don't know any of you guys that lived in Phoenix. Maybe if you're listening, it was a salon. It was called Youngblood and it was a really hip salon. And I got hired and I was working in this salon and there was so many different personalities. I want to say there was probably about 25 stylists there and there was so many good stylists in there. And I remember just feeling that imposter syndrome where you just feel like, what am I doing here? I don't even belong here. I'm not cool enough. I'm not hip enough. I don't dress right. All these negative thoughts surrounded me. And I started wondering if I even belonged in the industry. And those were 2 times in my career, that I share with you. It was early on, but this one that I'm sharing with you about working in the high-end salon, it was my first dip, my toe dip into working in a really busy, fast-paced hair salon. You heard in my last episode where I was sharing the story of when we were in the service and I stepped over that fear and walked into the salon that I really wanted to work in, that I was terrified to go into, but I did. And it ended up changing the whole trajectory of my career because I had the blessing of being trained by 2 wonderful people that took me under their wing and really, taught me so much about how to be a successful hairstylist. But I want you to know that, and by the way, if you haven't listened to that, I believe that's episode 4. But anyhow, because of that experience, that enabled me to have the courage to even apply at this high-end salon. But once I was in there, this salon was so big and it had so many different types of personalities there. And it was my first experience of working in not only a high-end salon, but there was a lot of cliques within the salon as well. Of course, I was new. And I went through a lot of struggles there. And I can honestly tell you that I walked around with a knot in my stomach most of the time when I was there. And I felt very discouraged. I really did. It was a time in my career where I was just like, I don't know. I went from feeling really good about my skills and who I was because I came from that small town and all that training. And then here I was, working in this salon that was high end. It was very busy. And I came from this small town vibe. And so it was just very intimidating. And as I look back at those days in that salon and, when I wanted to quit and I really thought, my God, maybe I'm not cut out for this. There were some things that I look back on now that I realize that the only reason why I survived those seasons and grew into the hairstylist that I am today and the educator and the mentor that I am today is because I developed the 3 traits that I want to share with you today. And these 3 traits, at the time, I guess I came by them just naturally. I just wanted to survive. I was in a place of, I wanted to prove to my family, my husband at the time, that I wasn't a quitter. And I think deep down, I wanted to prove to myself, I just couldn't be a quitter. I didn't have anywhere else to go, anywhere else to turn. And I knew that if I was going to succeed, that I had to do something. And so that's what today's episode is about. And the first step is that I was humble. A lot of times we as hairstylists, we let ego step in and keep us from growing. And when I think about the incident in that big salon, I had to humble myself. I had to humble myself to ask for help. There was 2 stylists there in that salon. One of them, she was so talented on her color and her hair cutting. She just did beautiful work and she was just always busy. And when I look back and I remember her name to this day too. I'm not going to say it just because this is a podcast, but I remember her. I remember what she looks like. I remember her name and how she made me feel. And I remember asking for help if I could watch her. And I swept her hair and I watched her every moment I could and asked her so many questions. And she was so kind to me that she shared, she taught me, she shared with me, she let me watch her. And then there was another gal in there that she wasn't so great at her work. Like I didn't look at her work and think, wow, she's got great work. What I admired about her was that she was really busy because it's just the way she talked to her clients and the way she communicated with her clients. And she was always the top seller too, as far as retail goes. I mean, this gal, she dressed the part. Oh my gosh. I loved the way she dressed. And her clients just hung on every word. They respected her. And so I really listened to how she spoke to clients. And watched her and really gleaned knowledge and wisdom from her. So being humble a lot of times is, not feeling embarrassed to ask for help. I mean, a lot of times we as hairstylists, we don't want to look foolish in front of our peers or have them think that we don't know what we know. Guys, this is pride and this is ego. And it's the number one reason why a lot of hairstylists don't make it, because they're too prideful and too afraid of feeling like they have to ask a question, feeling embarrassed. And the other is just being humble enough I had been doing hair by that point. It was like 4 or 5 years and I had already assisted, but I was humble enough to go back to assist again because I knew I didn't have the skills that I needed to get where I wanted to be. So I humbled myself to sweep their hair, clean up their station, wash their clients' hair, help them if they needed to blow dry. I wasn't afraid to do that. I allowed myself to be coachable. And so I just want to share with you guys that the humility is not a weakness. It is the fastest path to becoming the hairstylist that you want to be. So take it from somebody who knows. This is not somebody that's talking to you that hasn't walked through it. I've walked through it. And in my career, I can honestly say I've assisted, I want to say at least three times in my career. The second trait that I want to share with you is that you need to learn from your mistakes. There was a time in my career, oh my gosh, I wanted to die. I was cutting a friend's hair and we were chatting and talking, and she wanted a little more volume on the top. And so I was going to take some weight out of her hair. And if you're a hairstylist, you're probably going to figure out what I'm about to tell you. Well, I picked up my regular shears and I took a huge chunk out of the top of her hair. I thought I had my texturizing shears in my hands, but guys, I had my regular scissors. And in that moment, I wanted to die. I thought, oh my God, what have I done? Well, she looked at me and saw the look on my face and she was like, what's wrong? And I had to tell her, I had to tell her. So she says, well, she, of course, I don't even remember it. It's been so long ago, but I don't know. This was like in the late 80s, around there. And so I ended up cutting her hair a bit different. I made it kind of spiky on top. And, I made it look presentable enough. But, oh my gosh, I couldn't sleep that night. I thought, I suck. I can't believe I did that. And it's a mistake that I made that still to this day, guys, I will still look down at my shears. I'll look in my hand to make sure before I start, taking some weight out of my client's hair that I have the right scissors in my hand. So that was a mistake that I made, but a mistake is not something that we are to beat ourselves up for forever. There's things that mistakes are what we learn the most from. We learn the most from our mistakes. That hairstylist that I shared with you that I really admired and assisted and watched everything, I remember she did beautiful highlights. And at the time, guys, when I went to school, they didn't teach foiling. And she was doing all this foiling work. And I accepted a client that wanted highlights. And I thought, well, how hard can it be? Oh, so I'm doing these foils on a client that I'd never met before and washed her out. And I did not want to bring her back to my shampoo bowl because, guys, you can guess it. She had bleed marks all over. It was awful. I was mortified. That was one of those moments where you're like, I suck. I should not be doing hair. I'll never forget it. And you know what's really crazy is God blessed me with a client that I did that on that was so kind. She ended up being a really long time client of mine. I couldn't believe it. Now, looking back on that, I was humble enough to ask for help and she helped me with it. And of course, I learned a lot, which brings me to the next trait that I want to share with you. But before I go from this particular trait is that Every single hairstylist that you admire or you look up to, you want to be like. Educators, big educators, they have a list of mistakes that they've made that you will never, ever know about. But guys, that's how we become great at what we do. We learn from those mistakes. We don't let those mistakes define us or make us not believe in ourselves. We have to look at those mistakes and know that those are teaching moments. So that brings me on to the next trait, and that is you've got to practice what you learn until it clicks. There is something that I taught or teach in all of my classes, and I learned this. It's called the cycle of change, and it's something that I feel that you need to always be going through your entire life so that you're not bored, so that you don't stop growing, so you don't stop learning. I had been doing hair for probably, it was after the cool salon and stuff. I ended up moving on into another, a salon that was a new salon that was opening up as well. It was a really cool salon. And I was just becoming a single mother, and I needed to make more money. And I knew I was at a place in my career where I'm like, I'm doing fine, but I need to do better. Because I wanted more for my kids. I wanted more time with them. I wanted to be able to charge more for my work. And I didn't feel like my work was valuable enough to really charge what I needed to charge. And so I scraped up the money and I went to a 3-day academy. And it was actually by Graham Webb. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with it, but it was called the Classics of Haircutting. And guys, I'm going to say it again. I had been doing hair close to 10 years. Maybe it was 8. I can't even remember now. But I can honestly tell you that those 3 days were so hard. So hard. I was brought back to all the artistic disciplines and techniques that you use in hair cutting. There were times in that class that I was like, oh my God, here I thought I was so great. It really was hard. And in that class, they shared with us what I'm about to share with you, what I call the cycle of change. And the first one is that, just like when I entered that class, the Classics of Haircutting, I was introduced to something new, a new way of approaching haircutting. And at first it was exciting. I was like so excited to be there, so thrilled and just so into it. It was new, it was exciting. I was learning something new. And then I started to try doing it. Then it became very awkward. I felt super uncomfortable. So that brings you into the next stage, which is discomfort. I remember trying these techniques and practicing them. There were times I wanted to throw my mannequin head across the room. I was like, I thought I knew this. It was so hard. And it was humbling. It was humbling, guys, because at this point in my career, I started making a name for myself in that hip salon. I wasn't the newbie that didn't know anything. I was starting I had become one of the top stylists in that salon. And, being in this class and learning something new, all of a sudden I'm like, you are not the cool hairstylist you thought you were. That's another moment in my career where I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing here? I thought I was so great and I'm not. I don't want to say that I almost quit, but I wanted to quit learning that technique. I wanted to quit and go back to my old habits. But when I got home from that class, it didn't end there. When my kids went to bed at night, I don't care how tired I was practicing on those heads. And I practiced it until, you know what? One day it clicked. I got it. I understood it. And then it became part of me and part of my work. And it was like muscle memory for me. I just knew it. And then the last part of the cycle of change was I mastered it. And at that point, you guys, that's when, as hairstylists, that's when we become creative. Because we're not in our head anymore trying to figure out this haircut or trying to figure out this technique. It's just so much a part of our routine that then we're able to become creative and put our own spin on it. And that's, guys, that is when my whole life changed even from there. It propelled even more. Eventually, I was able to charge so much more for my work, and I was able to, at the time I was, when I started in that, I was living in just a really rundown apartment. And I remember being able to get my kids out of there because of my work behind the chair, because I humbled myself to learn, because I didn't let the mistakes define me, and I learned from them. And then I threw myself into learning something new, into the cycle of change. And that enabled me to become the hairstylist that I always wanted to be. Eventually, guys, I went on to own my own salon, and I ended up, using what I learned in that academy and everything I've learned throughout my career at the time, and created a really awesome apprentice program. And eventually I became an educator for Graham Webb, and because they saw something in me, and it's just awesome, you guys. So I just want to go back through that cycle of change real quick. And that is, learn something new. And when you learn something new, it's exciting and new. And then allow yourself to go through the discomfort where it feels awkward. Don't quit here. Don't quit. I know so many hairstylists, and one comes to my mind in particular, that she was so good at communicating and could entertain clients. Clients loved her. And every time she would learn something new, she would get really uncomfortable. Somebody I worked with for many, many years. And then eventually she'd just go back to what she was doing. And eventually, guys, it got to the point where she was losing clients and always on this hamster wheel of trying to get new clients in, because she wasn't able to sustain her clients, because her work, it wasn't up with times. And the stylists around her who were learning and who were growing, they were just doing better work. And the clients could see it. And so eventually they were moving on, because that person was wanting to charge top dollar, but her work wasn't worthy of top dollar. So I encourage you to don't stop at the discomfort stage. Get into the practice stage. You learn something new. You practice it. You practice it. You practice it until it clicks and it becomes part of you and your work. And then that's where you master it. That's the moment where you become creative. And this is the only place that where creativity is possible. So, guys, confidence doesn't come from watching. It comes from doing again and again until it becomes part of you. And I just want to reassure you that this stage, this cycle of change, it's something that every successful hairstylist is constantly learning new things, constantly in this cycle of change, because that's what keeps us motivated and keeps us inspired. If you care enough to be discouraged, if you care enough to feel disappointed after a mistake, if you care enough to be listening to this podcast right now, that means you're exactly where you're meant to be, and you're going to be just fine. You're going to be successful, because I know you're not going to give up. I know you're going to look at those mistakes as a learning step to the next level. So just to rephrase, just to go back over it again, first one is be humble. Be humble. Don't be so proud that you can't ask for help. Stay coachable. Next, learn from your mistakes. Don't let those mistakes define you. Don't keep going over it and over it again. Guys, we as hairstylists, we're perfectionists. We want to have it be perfect, but we don't get to be perfect until we do make those mistakes. So learn from your mistakes. And lastly, practice it until it clicks. Don't quit when it gets uncomfortable. Continue to practice it until it clicks, until you master it. Till then, you become creative and become confident. Hey, if you're in a season of discouragement, or you don't have someone in your corner that's helping you through these moments, I want to invite you to book a one-on-one coaching session with me. I'm opening up coaching this month because I personally know how hard this season is for hairstylists, especially during the holidays. So if you need clarity, or you need guidance, or you just need someone who's been there to help you get to the next level, I would so much love to help you. be sure to just check the show notes to learn how to do that. I just want to thank you for listening, and I really hope from the bottom of my heart that this podcast, today's episode, has inspired you, has encouraged you. If you are in a season of discouragement, know that you're not alone, that every hairstylist out there has been there, and I'm here to help you if you need some help. Happy haircutting, everybody.
Hey, thanks for hanging out with me today on Cutting Through It. I hope today inspired you. I hope that it gave you some clarity and confidence. But most importantly, I hope it gave you the courage to keep going. Because you, my friend, you're not meant to do this journey alone as a hairstylist. If this episode lit something up in you, would you hit the subscribe button? But most importantly, let me know by leaving me a review. And also, I have another favor to ask. Will you share this with another hairstylist who you know that might need a little boost today? Your words help this message from this podcast reach more hairstylists who need it. And if you want to dive a bit deeper with me and learn about all the free resources I have, head over to my website at onpointhairbysherry.com. Until next time, stay faithful, stay focused, and stay on point. And never, never forget that your clients, they'll remember more about how you made them feel than anything else at all. Have a blessed day.